Welcome to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm Dr. Kelly Livingston, a naturopathic physician and your guide to a new health reality, one that connects body, mind, and spirit. Together, we'll dive deep into the art and science of holistic healing. Through working with hundreds of women through midlife transitions, I've discovered something profound. Most of our physical and emotional challenges are rooted in a maladaptive stress response. And true healing begins when we regulate our nervous system. Each episode will explore complex health topics in simple, empowering ways, uncover the deeper wisdom within each of us, and share practical tools for nervous system regulation to help you awaken your vital force and create lasting wellness. So, if you're ready to reconnect with yourself, your health, and your purpose, let's begin this journey together so you can experience life more fully human and deeply healed. If you've been feeling wired but tired, like your body is stuck in go mode, even when you're completely exhausted, then this conversation is for you. Today, we're diving into the truth about stress, cortisol, and hormones with my colleague and friend, Dr. Erin Kinney, a licensed naturopathic doctor and the stress reset expert. Dr. Kinney helps women balance their hormones, reset their stress response, and reclaim their energy and joy. And I am so excited for you to hear this conversation. We unpack what really happens when cortisol bottoms out, why burnout often masquerades as hormone imbalance, and how to start working with your body's stress response, not against it. Let's dive in. Hi, and welcome to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm joined today by Dr. Erin Kinney, a licensed naturopathic doctor and the stress reset expert, helping women balance their hormones, reset their stress response, and reclaim their energy and joy. She's the founder of the Kinney Health Clinic and the author of the upcoming book, The Cortisol Cure, which reveals how understanding and supporting cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, can transform mood, metabolism, and overall well-being. Through her integrative approach, Dr. Kinney combines the science of functional medicine with mindset-based strategies to help her patients turn stress from something that drains them into something that empowers them. Dr. Erin, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun.
You are welcome. And I just thought it would be fun to share with listeners how we met. So
yeah,
we were actually at the University of Bridgeport together, and I had the pleasure of we're essentially working under you in clinic. So
I forgot about that. I'm like, yeah, that was so fun.
Yeah. So
Long time
it's
ago
been
now.
so long ago. I know. It's been so wonderful to see you on your podcast, to hear the message that you're sharing with women around stress and hormones. And so I would just love to hear a little bit of your origin story, if you don't mind sharing, and maybe how you found naturopathic medicine and how you became the stress reset expert clinically.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I think many of us in this practice, I came to this medicine through my own healing journey. When I graduated from undergrad, and in my undergrad years, I was a marathon runner, and I had become a vegan, and I basically and I went from this happy, healthy picture of what I thought was great health to a year after graduation, I couldn't get out of bed. I gained 30 pounds, my joints hurt, and I was crying all of the time. And I could not understand why this was happening to me. I was 22 years old. I thought I was this really healthy person. I eat this vegan diet. I run all the time. And I felt terrible. And I went to my GP because my parents were like, you need to do something. You're not well. And my GP, without really even asking me any questions, he just handed me a prescription for an antidepressant and sent me out the door. And I left that appointment feeling even more hopeless. I was like, this can't be the answer. I'd kind of grown up in a more natural medicine-minded house. And I was like, why didn't he ask me any questions about my period or my bowel movements or my exercise routine? He asked me no questions about my life. This doesn't make any sense to me. And so I ended up, I was in therapy, and I was telling my therapist about this. And she goes, Erin, I just met with this doctor. He just moved to town. He's some sort of naturopathic. I'm not sure what he does, but I think you need to go see him. And this was over 20 years ago at this point, right? So I go to see this naturopathic doctor. He spends 2 hours with me. He runs all these tests. And I meet with him a couple weeks later, and turns out my B12 was low, my iron was low, all of the nutrients that, you typically don't get from a vegan diet were low. And then the other thing that was low was my cortisol was nearly non-existent. And I was super confused because I was like, wait, I don't know a lot about this, but I thought cortisol was your stress hormone. I thought that would be good if it was low. And he was like, no, you need cortisol. It's really important. And so he diagnosed me with kind of adrenal fatigue. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I was 22 at the time. In about 6 weeks on his protocol, I felt amazing. I had lost weight. My energy was back. I stopped crying. And I was like, wow, this medicine is like magic, right? And at the time I was working in my family business. I ended up quitting that job because it wasn't aligned with me. What I loved about my visits with him was that he talked to me about everything else in my life. He's like, hey, what's fulfilling you? What's giving you joy? Whatever. What doctors ask you that, right? And we determined that it was
doctors.
Dramatic doctors, and we determined that the job that I was in wasn't right for me. So I left my family business, which was not easy because it was a family business, and I ended up going to a recruiting company and was like, I don't know what I want to do. Find me a job. And I stayed all day. I was like, this is the longest interview I've ever been on, and the recruiting company ended up hiring me to do recruiting.
That doesn't surprise me.
So, I'm bubbly. I like to talk to people. So I get this job doing temporary recruiting, which I was very good at. And about 9 or 10 months into the job, my boss sat me down and she's like, you're doing a great job, but I just have to tell you that I don't think this is the right profession for you. And she said that, and I was gutted. I was like, wait, I'm confused. I thought I was doing a great job. And she's like, well, you keep bringing me these resumes and you're like, hey, this woman had to leave her job because she got MS, and listen to what she had to deal with. Or this person's mom had cancer and she had to take, and she's like, I don't really care about their medical diagnoses. I want to know, can they do the job or not? And she was like, I think you care about their medical And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So I then called the doctor that had treated me, the year prior. And I was like, can we have lunch? I want to learn about this medicine that you practiced. And we sat down and we had lunch. And he was like, listen, he's like, if I'm honest, he's like, I'm going to tell you not to go to naturopathic medical school because it's going to be an uphill battle. No one's going to know what the hell you do. And you're going to have to run your own business because there won't be a job for you. And I was like, I don't know, that sounds kind of appealing to me. So I didn't listen to him at all. I was like, I called him a couple months later. I was like, I applied to naturopathic school, and he laughed. He's like, great. Like, I'm here for you if you need any support.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome to the tribe.
And, and I really wanted to help people that had gone through something like myself, right? That had been kind of dismissed by their primary care doctor, that knew that there wasn't something quite right in their body and wanted, a different type of support and a different type of health. And, in my story, I'd literally run myself into the ground. I was running a ton. I wasn't fueling my body in the way that I needed. And I completely burnt myself out, right? At the age of 22. So, and a lot of us do that, right? We don't realize that our bodies do have you have to give the body rest. You have to give the body what it needs to recharge. And I wasn't doing that. And so, a lot of my own work has still been to make sure that I do that, because I tend to be a go-getter, and I've definitely burnt out more times than that. And I as you mentioned, I have a book coming out next year in which I talk about the importance of cortisol. And what I learned, really that in that visit with him, that first follow-up visit, was that cortisol, we think of it as a stress hormone, but it's really the hormone our body makes in response to stress to give you energy to deal with stress. It's an energy hormone. It's also your body's natural form of prednisone. If you're on your computer, look up cortisol versus prednisone, the molecules are pretty much the same. And so in the body, cortisol also acts as an anti-inflammatory. So when you don't have enough of it, joint pain, headaches, rashes, unchecked inflammation can go on. Yeah. And so, yes, too much cortisol can cause a lot of problems, but the book I'm writing is really about what happens when your cortisol bottoms out. And that's what I see, and I'm sure you do. I see almost every day in practice, people they're burnt out, and their body is kind of screaming in these like mysterious symptom ways where their general labs look fine, right? Their liver function, their kidney function, their CBC, all of their basic stuff looks normal. And they're just told, oh, you must be stressed. Here's the birth control pill if you're a female, and here's an antidepressant, and see me in 6 months kind of thing. And I think in today's world, especially in today's world with all the information out there about health, people don't want that. They don't want to be dismissed anymore. They want someone who's going to be like, hey, here's what's happening in your body. Here's how we can create a roadmap to fix it. So anyways, that's my long version of how I came to this medicine.
I love that. I love it. And a lot of us came to it through an experience ourselves, right?
Yes.
And I just admire very much that you're able to articulate to women that, yes, they deserve more than just to be told your labs are normal, to be handed a birth control pill or an antidepressant, right? We, as women, deserve to be listened to and guided in exploration of what our body's trying to tell us. So
Yes.
very much aligned with how I practice.
Yes.
And
yes.
we haven't really chatted in a while, but I can guarantee just from hearing that your population is very similar to the population of women I see. And I can hear that kind of fire and passion behind you feeling frustrated with women just being handed a pill because there are so many answers. And I just love that you're providing some solutions in the Cortisol Cure. What was the timing that kind of prompted you to write the book now? How did that come about?
Well, I've wanted to write the book for a long time. You know, I've taught workshops on cortisol and the stress response for, you know, and usually I use a lot of analogies. You know, the way that I like to practice.
You have great analogies. I've gotten some from you,
and I love them, and they land well with people. You know, I think my favorite part of the naturopathic principles is docere, right? Doctor as teacher, and I think it's really any doctor's role is to teach patients about what's going on in their body. And I've learned that if I get all super medically, it's going to go right over someone's head, and they're going to walk away and be like, what the hell did she tell me? So I like to simplify it and kind of get it in like ways that you can really understand what's happening. Because I find that when you understand what's happening and you understand the why, you're much more likely to be compliant with the things you need to do that are going to get you better, right? If you understand what's happening and why you need to meditate or why you need to take time out to chill out, you're going to do it versus when someone's like, oh, just lower your stress. And then you're like, well, I'm just going to keep going. Right. So anyway, so I've been wanting to do the book for a while. A couple of years ago, took a writing workshop. And in that workshop, I had, you know, kind of this writing teacher kind of pull the main ideas out and kind of come up with a framework. And then she helped me write a book proposal. And for 3 months, I shopped it around to agents and publishers, and every door closed. They were like, nope, your platform's not big enough. Nope. If you want to publish with a big publisher, absolutely not. Like, we like the book idea, but no. And I was like, you know what? Maybe now's not the time. And granted, there are so many ways you can publish a book. With my current lifestyle, I really wanted to have a big publisher handle all the things. A year later, I randomly out of the blue got an email that was like, hey, did you ever find a home for this book? We came across this proposal you sent again. We're really interested in it. Do you have an agent? And I was like, oh, no, I don't. And they were like, oh, here's some agents we think might like you. And within 2 weeks, I got an agent and had a giant book deal with a big publisher.
Wow.
So it was like it was supposed to happen. The timing wasn't quite right when I wanted it. So it was actually a really cool reminder. I spent the year in between when I was pushing really hard for it. And when it came, I spent the year really working on my own nervous system, like really, and not that I haven't been doing that work for a long time, but I feel like my life kind of took this major exhale and I kind of chilled out. And then the universe was like, here you go.
Here you go. You can handle this now.
You can handle this now. The other thing I really love about our medicine is, you know, I feel like when someone first comes in to start working with me, obviously, you know, we're talking about the physical stuff. We're talking about what's going on in their body. And I feel like when they apply this medicine and apply this work, yes, their physical body gets better, but my favorite part is watching what happens in their lives as their nervous system settles and they become like more in tune with their body. Patients come and like, oh, I got this job every morning, or I finally, you know, found a relationship that I'm really happy in, or just, I love my life now. Right. Like, and that's my favorite thing to watch is how this medicine not only transforms your health, but really transforms your life. And it's done that for me, which is really cool.
Yeah, it has a ripple effect.
It has a ripple effect, yeah.
And I usually frame it in nervous system speak with my patients. So I'm sure similarly. And I always say that we can change the world one regulated nervous system at a time, because
absolutely,
as you're working on getting the body into a healing state, a lot of that work is through the nervous system, and you're working on all the other root causes. And then as you are transforming, your nervous system is going to transform those around you. And you watch it happen every day. I'm sure. I love that.
It's really, it's cool. It is a really cool profession that we're in, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm obviously very passionate about it too. So we touched on a little bit about the cortisol myth and how women might think that cortisol, you know, the stress hormone, is bad for us. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about a healthy cortisol function and what it might look like if someone's cortisol is off, or if their nervous system is dysregulated. Maybe that new patient that walks in your door and they are looking for something beyond being handed a pill. What are some of the things that you're first educating them about around cortisol?
So I usually start with teaching about what happens in the stress response, right? Like kind of the HPA
Okay.
axis, if you will. I don't necessarily
Yeah.
use that terminology because patients are like, what does that mean? I'm like, let's talk about the stress response.
I
It
have
starts
multiple episodes on it so they can
yes.
go back and catch
Oh,
up.
good, so they can understand it. Yeah. So, it's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, but your amygdala is kind of the first thing that senses whether something's a stressor or not, right? It's kind of like a very lizard part of our brain that's like, this is a stressor or this isn't. And if that gets triggered as a stress response, then something comes to the hypothalamus, and the brain is like, okay, we need cortisol. So the brain pumps out cortisol releasing hormone, right? And then the body gets flooded with cortisol so you can have energy to deal with stress. But here's what's supposed to happen is once you've kind of dealt with the stressors, let's say that, we're sitting in our office and a lion jumps in here. Like, I want some cortisol so I can like happily run away from this lion. Once I'm safe, this is the next part is the really important part, is that same cortisol molecule is supposed to go back to the hypothalamus. It binds to these receptors called a glucocorticoid receptor, and it's supposed to turn off further production of cortisol. So while cortisol, it's the thing that floods your system, it's also the really important hormone that turns off your stress response, right? So we want to be able to activate into fight, flight, and then come out. But you have to have enough cortisol to do that. What happens, and I love using like March of 2020 or like the pandemic effect, right? That was a really fun month for all of us where it was like our amygdalas were getting triggered every second. It was like, oh, this is happening, this is happening. And your body, super, super wise machinery, right? The body's like, you know what? I'm not sure I would like to turn off the stress response because they're just going to keep the stress coming. So your body down regulates the production of those receptors. So now you're essentially stuck in this fight flight mode, right? So, and I know if you're listening and you kind of dealt with stress, you'll know that probably if you've had a season of stress, it's hard for you to relax, right? It's because your body doesn't have the ability to bind and turn off the production of that cortisol releasing hormone. So the body's just stuck pumping out cortisol. In my book, and when I'm teaching patients, I like to use this analogy that cortisol is like your currency that your body uses to spend on things. And so it's basically like your bank account. And when you're in fight flight mode, you're spending energy. And when you're in rest and digest, you're earning it back. If you lose those receptors, it's basically like losing the brakes. You're going to be in spend mode constantly. Anyone who's ever balanced a budget, run a household, run a business, you'll know that if all you ever do is spend money and you don't earn any, you're going to go into debt. So your cortisol levels are going to start to decline. And so this is kind of, I like to explain this to patients like, hey, if you've been working 100-hour weeks and, going through a divorce or whatever you're going through for years at a time, you've been in this chronic spend state. And so your, again, levels are going to decline. And usually what happens in the body is the first thing it will do if your cortisol levels are low, but you still have a stressor or you still have to get up and do things, is the body will be like, okay, I don't have any cortisol, but I can make some adrenaline. Adrenaline is super, super cheap. I'm going to pump that adrenaline out, which will get you going, but it doesn't feel very good. You get that like wired, jittery feeling, right? Jittery. You're like, oh, I don't feel very good, like that tired but wired thing. That's mostly from too much adrenaline. Now, in some cases that can be from too much cortisol, but for the purposes of what we're talking about, usually what I see is low levels of cortisol, high levels of adrenaline. Yeah.
And those patients often say they feel buzzy even.
They feel buzzy.
Yeah. I just had a patient yesterday and she's like, I feel like I'm buzzing on the inside.
You get the heart palpitations, you get the like, and it's like drinking 15 cups of coffee. It doesn't feel, I mean, yes, you're functioning, but it doesn't feel good, right? And then, so the body will do that for a little while, but then the next thing that happens is, again, if you want to go Google a picture of this, if you look at cortisol versus testosterone or cortisol versus progesterone or cortisol versus estrogen, all of your sex hormones have a very similar steroidal backbone, right? You look at it and you're like, oh, I could easily like convert that over. So I like to think of your sex hormones as like a savings account. And so if your cortisol levels are tanked, the body will convert those sex hormones into cortisol to keep up the stress hormone, to keep that bank account that you need to be spending from. So then we start to see changes in sex drive, changes in the period. And this gets exponentially worse for perimenopausal and menopausal women because those savings accounts are already dwindling. It's interesting. Perimenopause, I feel like, is having its moment right now, right? It's like all over everywhere. And I get all these people coming and they're like, I'm in perimenopause. And yes, your hormones do start to change in your late 30s, early 40s, right? Progesterone starts to go down. Estrogen will fluctuate a little bit. But think about like in your 30s, 40s, it's usually a very stressful time for women, right? You're at the height of your career. You're probably raising children. You might be taking care of aging parents. There's a lot happening. and women don't tend to take care of themselves very much. So I actually kind of think the majority of perimenopausal symptoms are actually from depleted cortisol, which is further depleting the hormones. Not to say that hormone changes aren't a piece of the puzzle, but I find
No, I totally agree. I'm on the same page.
I find with so many of my patients, when we regulate their adrenals and they start to learn to rest, their hormone symptoms get so much better. So, and not to say we don't want to do, hormone treatment that we need to, but again, when you regulate your nervous system, menopause will come eventually, but you don't necessarily need to be having those symptoms in your early 40s.
And I think that's the beauty of our therapeutic order as naturopathic physicians. So whether or not you practice in a state where you prescribe or not, ideally you're working through the therapeutic order and providing those foundations for healing. And you may or may not work up the order depending on the patient.
But you might skip around a little bit.
Yeah, you might bounce around. I talk about that a lot too.
Yeah, but so the main message I'm really giving people is I'm like, hey, usually their first homework assignment is I'm going to send you home and I want to think about, if every time you're doing something, you're spending your energy. And every time you're resting, true resting, not sitting on the couch scrolling, it would be like meditating, doing a puzzle, reading a book, cooking if you enjoy it, like things where your body is calm and your brain is not spinning out. That's when you earn energy back. So I'm like, hey, I want you to look at your life. Are you spending more than you're earning, or are you earning as much as you're spending? And I have them come back and I'm like, okay, let's look at like where are the spends, where are the earns, and how can we balance the books on your energy budget essentially. So that's really what my book is about, is like learning how to balance the books in each kind of bucket of your body.
I love that, because the first step is obviously acknowledging. We say in our practice, we say recognize and remove, maladaptive stress patterns. I've heard you share another great analogy, which is around this relaxation muscle and building in relaxation time. So I'm assuming that building in that relaxation time is helping your bank account, essentially, your cortisol bank account.
Well, so the other thing I explained is like we have two main muscles of the nervous system, right? You've got your fight flight muscle and you've got your rest and digest muscle. And just like any muscle, the more you exercise a muscle, the stronger it gets. So if all you do is work out your fight flight muscle, it's going to get really strong, which is great. You're going to respond to stress really, really well. But if you have a really weak rest and digest muscle, let's say that you're driving in traffic and someone cuts you off, the muscle that's going to fire is the stronger muscle. So, or you might be like having a conversation with your partner, they forgot to get something at the store. It's not a stressful conversation, but if that muscle's so wound up, you're going to snap. You're going to come at them in a fighting place, right? So every time you do something to relax, you're working out that relaxed muscle and you're getting it stronger. And the reason I kind of came up with this analogy because I feel like so many women are like, I can't relax. I can't sit down. I don't know how to relax. And at first I was, I've been that way too. And I'm like, well, this doesn't seem, we should be able to relax, but it's really, we're not relaxing because we just haven't trained ourselves to, right? When you look at the human nervous system, it's extremely trainable. And if you train it to stay on, if you train it to get up and you drink coffee all day and you keep going and then you crash at night, your body thinks that it's not safe to rest. So it's going to stay in that mode, right? And you're going to keep strengthening that one muscle. I always tell patients, I'm like, let's pretend your fight flight muscle are like your back muscles and your rest and digest are like your abdominal muscles. If all you do is work out your back muscle, anytime you go to do anything, that's the muscle that's going to fire. And you could end up injuring that muscle because it's overused, right? So you want to train the abdominal muscle so it gets stronger. But think about if you've never worked out your ab muscles and you go take a Pilates class, it's going to be awful. You're going to hate it, but you're going to keep going because if you've ever gotten into shape, you know that reps make muscles stronger. So this is what I try to tell my patients. I'm like, listen, you might try to read a book for 10 minutes in the middle of the day, and I promise you, it's not going to feel good the first few times you do it. You're going to be like, I have so many things on my to-do list. I got to go do stuff. But every time you practice that, you are strengthening your relaxed muscle. Really what's happening is you're teaching the body to make more of those glucocorticoid receptors so that you can then turn off. And you nailed I can't talk. You hit the nail on the head, or your cortisol level will actually start to come back up the more you practice those relaxing, moments or work out that relaxed muscle or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So it sounds like by sharing that information and by preparing people to know that when they go to work that muscle, it might be hard, you're helping them to shift their mindset around stress and kind of around the power that they have around their nervous system and their cortisol response and all that. I love that. Yeah. What's some of the resistance that you get at first? I'm sure we have some themes in common in patients that you help them work through.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think patients are like, well, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And, you know, and we'll talk about that. I'm like, it might feel like you don't have time for that. But, you know, a lot of these patients are like, I have brain fog, I'm fatigued, you know, and they're drinking caffeine every time they get tired. And, you know, I talk about, hey, when you're tired and you drink caffeine, you're essentially teaching your body it's not safe to sleep, or again, it's not safe to rest. And a lot of those people also have trouble sleeping. They wake up at 3 a.m. and they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, you've trained your body that it's not safe to sleep. So you fall asleep, it's going to wake you back up because that's what you're doing all day long. I think the resistance is mostly around, I'm not going to have enough time to get all the things done if I incorporate these rest practices, right? Like that's the biggest resistance theme. And, you know, one of the other big themes that I see come up, most of my patients that are coming to see me, they work out too much. They spend way too much time exercising, like hours and hours a day, doing tons of cardio, and they're doing it because they think it's going to help them lose weight. And oftentimes, you know, for middle-aged women, that backfires. And especially if your life is really, really stressful. I mean, exercise is great, don't get me wrong, but it's running is the pure form of fight flight, right? It is like when you exercise, your system's on, you're spending cortisol, you're draining your energy reserve. So, you know, I think you're
even engaging the muscles that you use to run from a bear or a lion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is like, and you know, no problem with exercise. I'm a bit, you know, I love my patients to exercise, but if you're doing that and you're not getting any downtime during the day, it's just compounding on the stress piece, right? So, you know, I say to my patients, I usually mandate 2 days off a week, and I get a lot of resistance around that one.
I bet.
Like, I have to exercise. And I did recently have a patient that owns a fitness studio, and she was so depleted. She was teaching 2 classes a day, exercising herself every day, and all kinds of other stress. And she actually, I was so surprised because normally my fitness instructors resist this really hard. She was like, oh my God, I needed someone to give me permission to take some time off. She's like, I'm exhausted. Aww. I just saw her again for her first follow-up, and she's like, I've taken 3 days off a week. She's like, I feel fantastic. So sometimes it's really simple what you need to do to feel better.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to hear that. Yes. It's like when I tell women they need to eat more fat, and they're like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, yes, we need healthy fat. You need more fat.
Eat some butter. Yes, please eat all the fat. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite daily habits to support healthy cortisol, healthy hormones? Give us a couple of your favorites.
Sure. So my favorite thing is, I call it an afternoon toes up, where I usually sometime after lunch, when I'm normally like, my energy's going down a little bit, I go take 10 to 15 minutes. I turn off my phone. I lay horizontal, and sometimes I'll listen to music, or sometimes I read, but usually I just lay there. Sometimes I fall asleep, sometimes not. And, you know, when you lay flat, you're signaling to the body to lower the heart rate, to lower the breath rate, to lower the blood pressure. It's like, again, teaching the body like, oh, it's safe for me to take a breath, safe for me to calm down. And I try to do that almost every day. And that's one of the first things I try to have patients do. I'm like, it's free. You can pretty much do it anywhere. If you don't have space in your office, go, you know, put your car out, like try to get your seat in your car to go as far back as possible and just chill out. I also have, like, in between patient visits, I go and I wash my hands, and I usually spend about 2 minutes, and I just do like a mindful hand wash. 2 minutes, and I do it several times a day, and it just like resets me in between. So I think the thing that I've found to be really cool in my life is you don't have to, you know, managing or balancing your stress doesn't have to look like you're getting a massage 3 times a week, or, you know, these like kind of fancy biohack things. Those are great, but it really looks like the micro practices. What can I do to, like, and sometimes I tell patients, I'm like, hey, like when they're in the office, they're, you know, they're sitting on the edge of their seat and they're like all up. I'm like, hey, let's like sit back in our chair a little bit and feel supported and just chill out for a minute. Like, stop talking about your symptoms. Like, I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. Because every little moment that you do something like that, again, you're teaching your body that it's safe for it to calm down. And it's another rep on working out the relax muscle. It's really, you know, I think patients are like, well, how long should I do this for? I'm like, the length of time, it does matter to some extent. But when you're just getting started, it's more the intention. It's like, hey, I'm going to do this for 1 minute. I'm going to do this. And then you might be like, oh, that felt good. Let me do it for 5 minutes. Let me try 10 minutes. Let me meditate. I used to try to tell patients, I want you to meditate for 45 minutes. And how well do you think that went over? No one would do that. They'd be like, I didn't do that. I'm like, yeah, because it wouldn't feel comfortable.
How about that mind body section on your protocol? And they're like, no, I didn't read that part.
They're like, I took the supplements. I did the other things, right? And those things are important. But at the end of the day, your body won't heal, nor will it absorb the supplements if you're constantly in a fight-flight state. So Absolutely. Like every moment you can take to chill out and calm down is going to be another moment that your body can spend healing.
Yeah, absolutely. I struggled with patients kind of hearing that message as well. And where I practice, there are a lot of women that are, go, 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 and they have careers and they have family, and there's a lot of pressure. And so I did give a similar recommendation, although I say put your legs up the wall. So
that's
it's
great too.
You can just lay horizontal, of course. So
yeah,
it's wonderful. But sometimes it's just introducing them to the concept of pausing, recognizing maybe that does feel uncomfortable, and getting a little bit curious around that. And again, sometimes it is giving them permission, or they'll joke and say, "Oh, Dr. Kelly, you just need to tell me to do that." Right. And even though I'd like them to resource from within and not necessarily need someone else to tell them to do something, I think step one is really just recognizing that that's a muscle that we need to work on, and we're safe to do so. We have permission to do so. And even if it feels uncomfortable at first, just kind of sticking with it and and giving it a try. Yeah, I really like that. Speaking of, adaptogens or supplements or other things, nutrition, diet, other lifestyle changes, what are some of your favorite just general recommendations for a woman that's listening, maybe in perimenopause? She really resonates with what we're saying about stress, and she's going to go try those little relaxation moments. What are some of your other favorite approaches?
So usually the first thing that, because tons of patients have tons of questions about diet. How should I be eating? And, the blanket response I give to most people is you need to keep your blood sugar balanced. We'll work together to figure out what that looks like for you. But when blood sugar is unstable, that's going to trigger a stress response. Blood sugar dips, body's going to need to come back with a stress response because the body's like, I don't have enough sugar. I got to release some sugar. So eating regular meals. I think the biggest thing I see women is they skip breakfast or they skip lunch. They were kind of run on caffeine through the day, and then they eat a big dinner, thinking like, oh, I'll cut my calories, I'm too busy to eat. But that's like a one-way ticket to burnout, right? So eating 3 meals a day and or snacks is, usually what I start to work on with patients. Now, what exactly they're eating is going to depend on the person. So I wouldn't offer blanket advice on that. But again, doing what you need to do to keep your blood sugar balanced, number one and most important thing.
Because it's telling your body, again, you're safe.
It's safe. Yes, exactly. If you don't feed it, the body's like, oh God, I'm in famine mode, right? And so for hormones, really not great for hormones. And for weight loss too. I mean, so many women come in wanting to lose weight, and they, they're under eating, and the body, the metabolism slows down. And I have another analogy I use for weight loss. It's, imagine your body's like a house. Inside your house, we've got your kitchen, your bathroom, your laundry room, which are like your major internal organs. Weight you want to lose is like a basement closet filled with junk, not high on the body's priority list. And if you're constantly in a stress state, it's like having someone come over for every meal of every day, meaning your body's going to be focused on cleaning the kitchen. It's not even going to think about cleaning out the basement closet. So
that's so good. I love that.
And people are like, oh, that makes sense. And what do you need to clean out a closet? You need time and you need energy. And if cortisol is your main energy hormone, you're low on that because you've spent it, there's no way you're going to lose weight. So working on getting your energy up is really, really important. But also, again, exercise and eating right are important, but you do need to give the body the time off to actually remove the fat cells. Anyways, we got off track, but back to supplements. I'm really big on like a B complex supplement, your adrenals, B complex and magnesium are kind of what I put most people on. And then herbal, like adaptogens, I really like ashwagandha and rhodiola. Those are probably the two I use the most. I also like holy basil.
Obviously, depends on the person again.
It depends on the person, exactly. And some people, herbs are going to be too stimulating or too calming. But I think like making sure they have enough B vitamins and making sure they're getting enough magnesium are really, really important. And then, I think I touched on this a little bit. If your gut's not working well, it's going to be hard for your body to absorb supplements. So that's, another piece is we got to make sure that the gut is absorbing and functioning properly. So, I think as we touched on earlier, like the therapeutic order is super important. We have to make sure that your body is doing all of the basics, right? You have to have all the basics in place. And if those aren't in place, then a lot of the fancy protocols, they're not really going to work.
Right. And I find now more than even when so I graduated in 2013 from naturopathic medical school, and you were the year before me. And I think with Instagram and health influencers and kind of the explosion of functional medicine, and these are all positive changes, I think, in the way that
Yeah.
women look at health. Like they know there's other ways to solve their health issue, right? But I think it can get very overwhelming. And a lot of patients come into the office and they're already supplement fatigued, or they've tried this, they've tried that, So I really, really love the true nature cure and the true nervous system regulation that you share as well. And the focus on just getting into that safe healing state, stepping back, slowing down, kind of assessing what depletes you, what renews you. You probably hear a lot from women too, that when we're either, I would say, in kind of a hypervigilant or excess fight or flight state, and also on the back end in more of a burnout state, that it's really hard to access joy or compassion or to even just find pleasure and enjoyment in our day. So I think a lot of women are in that phase when they essentially reach out for help and come in.
Absolutely. And I've been in that phase. I shared my story in my 20s. In 2021, I had just finished going through a divorce. We'd all just finished going through the pandemic. And that year, my business exploded. Like I went from being me and one person to I had other providers and so many patients. And so I basically ran myself into the ground yet again, single parenting. And I was able to keep up the pace that I was at for about 18 months. And then my body completely crashed. And this time, I was suicidal for 3 months. Like I did not that I had a plan, but I didn't want to be here. Like, I just was like, but literally it was like, I'm so exhausted. Nothing's bringing me joy. And on paper, my life looked fantastic, right? I had this like growing career and something that I loved, but none of it gave me joy. And it was that point where I was like, wow, I'm also really embarrassed because this is what I help people do. And so I share that in the book, and I share that today, just be like, none of us are immune to this, right? Like,
of course
we live in a culture that like values hustle. We all wear our busy badge, right? So it's not an easy thing to be like, hey, I'm going to say no to that, or I'm going to set boundaries or get support, because I was definitely like, I can do this all on my own. And I would say the biggest change that I made at that point, I've always taken all the supplements, and it was just kind of testament to being like, listen, supplements are great, but if you're not doing the nervous system work, they're not going to get you anywhere. And you know what I mean? And so I started getting support. I started working with like a somatic coach. I, went back into therapy.
Awesome.
And that was honestly the most life-changing thing for me, was getting good support, really learning to regulate my nervous system. And I still kind of laugh at it because I'm like, here I have been teaching this for almost 15 years to patients, but I still, again, I wasn't immune to it.
Well, that's why you're good at it. You teach what you've had to learn.
Yeah, because I've lived it, right?
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that all.
Oh, you're welcome. But I think you're exactly right. So many women are just like going through the motions, and they're tired, and they're like, well, I got to keep going. But when you do start, we were talking about this offline before we started, when you give yourself more space, right, so the body can exhale, that's when you start to get creativity. And that's when you're like, ooh, that thing that I used to love to do when I was a kid, I'm going to do that again. Like, and now I have to say, like, what are we, like 4 years from that, almost 5 years from that point? I love life again. Like, I love life, and I'm happy. And I'm not just faking being happy. Like, I really enjoy being happy. I was really good at faking it in 2021. I would like get on my podcast and be like, I'm so here. And inside I'm like, I just want to go home and crawl into bed. And like,
yeah, I think the more that we share and we're vulnerable around these phases, and we share what tools helped us and what practices helped us, and that there's nothing wrong with us for going through that. And and to your point, when you're growing a business and I'm a single parent as well, like you are by definition in fight or flight mode. You're in survival mode. You're surviving.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like thriving when you're in that phase. But it's where you get the gold. It's where you learn all the gold that you can share, and the wisdom.
You learn, you like get forged through fire, right? Like, but I think
I'd like to find a way to do life easier, but I tend to learn my lessons the hard way.
I know, same here. But I think like the getting support, and just, and I think for our nervous systems, if we think we have to do it all alone, then of course you're going to be on all the time, because your body's like, well, I'm the only one I can count on. I can't relax. But if you start to learn like, oh, wait, I can call a friend, or I have this person that I pay to support me, or I have a whole team of people to support me, then it's easier for you to relax, because you're like, oh, it's not all on me. Someone else is going to catch me. And I always talk to my patients about a faith practice, right? Because I think this is inherently the belief in a higher power. allows your nervous system to be like, hey, I'm not alone. Someone up there is watching out for me. It doesn't matter the domination. It doesn't matter like what it is. But if you believe in a higher power, it's a great thing to lean on, especially if you're going through a hard season. I think my faith was what saved me during that hard season. My faith in my kids. I was like, well, I'm not going to do anything because I love my kids too much. But yeah, it's being human's not easy, right? Like, and there's a lot of things we can't control. And I think that's the thing is like these little micro practices that I teach, like those are things you can control. You're never going to be able to get rid of stress in our lives. Like it's not possible. And we're designed to deal with stress. Like our bodies are actually really good at it. So it's like the answer is not cut out your stress. Maybe if you're in a terrible job or a terrible relationship, maybe we do need to look at some of those patterns and try to remove them. But really the answer is, hey, where can I like make more deposits into my cortisol account? Where can I practice rest more so that I'm more equipped to handle what life's going to throw at me?
Yeah. Where can I build that resilience? Or I talk a lot about a window of tolerance or a threshold for stress. Yeah. But again, those are all just words, right? Sometimes you have to have a guide like yourself and experience it and maybe see labs to make the connection and to get motivated to make those changes. So it's not always easy. I love that you shared, being human is difficult because I talk a lot about living life fully human and deeply healed because again, that maybe there's a time and a place for a medication. I'm not saying that there isn't, but when you are kind of numbing or running from or suppressing and you're not experiencing life fully human and all that means, the ups and the downs. And I find that there's no deep healing that occurs. And so I do usually say, live life fully human and deeply healed. So I was going to ask you what that meant for you, but you kind of already brought it up yourself.
Honestly, I think if you're always on the surface level and you don't ever hit the lows of lows, it's like and I think, so many patients that I talk to, or even people that I bring on the podcast, when they talk about like what led them to their vocation that they love and they're passionate about, it usually was a very dark season of their life, right? Yeah. Like, I think I have a really good friend who walked through like her own cancer diagnosis, her husband's cancer diagnosis. She lost her sister-in-law and she'd been like, running a million miles a minute, like never didn't think about her health at all. And after all of that, she's now like a health coach and, helps other people. But she like had to go through that season in order for her to really bring, and so I think that you teach that is really cool because so many of us are on autopilot, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it feels safer to be on autopilot to dig a little deeper.
Yeah. Because it's not easy, like looking at those things. It's always like when you start with a new therapist, and like, oh God, I gotta dig down to all the things. Or even when you start with a naturopathic doctor. I mean, think about sometimes when we're like healing, sometimes people have healing crises. Sometimes like when we start to, the body's like, whoa, that was a major change. Like I'm going to get a rash.
What's happening?
Yeah. What's happening? But usually out of those is when the true healing really happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And recognizing a lot of times it's just reminding a patient, this is part of the process. You're safe. This is a safe container for you to experience this, whatever that response might be for that person. So I love that. Before, I know you have to get going for patients in a little while, but before we do that, is there anything else you'd like to share maybe around maybe a framework that you introduced in the Cortisol Cure or anything really that's top of mind for you that you think our listeners would like to hear at the end of our conversation?
I think really like the main message is like, think about where am I spending my energy and where am I earning my energy? And sometimes honestly, just like doing that assessment in your life, you might be like, oh, wow, like this one thing that I'm doing is really draining me. And so again, the awareness, which I know you talk about like the recognizing piece is really, really important. And it's hard to make changes without doing that first. And then, I always just tell patients, I'm like, listen, your homework is to find one activity that is a restful, like enjoy, almost like a hobby. Like maybe that's puzzling, or maybe that's again reading a novel, or if you love cooking, and make sure that that's built into your schedule, right? That like you do a little bit of that almost every day. I shared that,
I love that you mentioned finding something that you enjoyed when you were a kid, because very often if women are struggling with, like, let's just say joy, if you ask that question, it's a lot easier than saying like, go relax for a few
Yes.
minutes.
Oh,
It's
totally. Like,
what did you love to do when you were 5 or 10?
yeah. Did you love to color? Did you love to paint? Did you love to sing? Did you play an instrument? Did you love riding horses? Or, I think after you become a mom and you're busy, all that stuff kind of goes by the wayside, but it's like, you have to learn to try those things out again. And it doesn't have to be, the point is this should be something that you enjoy. It shouldn't add to your stress, right? So it needs to be something you can easily do. And I'm a huge fan of jigsaw puzzles. Like, I always have a 1,000-piece jigsaw piece puzzle.
Oh, that's fun.
Because it's something that occupies my brain enough, right? And I also feel like it gives me a little dopamine hit, get a piece and I'm like, ooh, I've accomplished something, right? But my body's calm when I'm doing it and my brain's not going to spin out. I actually do my best thinking when I do a puzzle. Like, I sit there and if I've got a problem I'm trying to figure out, like, I'll go and do the puzzle for an hour and I usually get an answer. And it regulates me, right? So usually when I come home from work, I usually need a little while before I can like really fully engage with my 5 children that I live with now. So I usually, I'm like, hey kids, I love you. I'm going to go do my puzzle for 20 minutes. And you can come puzzle with me, but please don't talk to me until I'm done. And that works really well. Like, and sometimes they'll come sit with me and we puzzle together. And like, it's just a nice, calming, regulating piece. And then I can go out and be present and I'm not like thinking about all the patients or whatever I'm kind of mentally wrestling with. Yeah.
And you're teaching them. You're teaching them how to work on relaxing. You're regulating with them. My daughter knows anytime we travel, I wake up in the morning and when she's still asleep, I meditate and I have my yoga and breathwork practice. And it's pretty much a non-negotiable. And like, she'll stumble out. I'll usually have a mat down for her. She may or may not, participate, but I'm not really paying any attention to her until I'm done. And then I'm a better mom.
Oh, yeah. My girls, it's so funny. They've grown up with me practicing and failing at this, for most of their life. But it is so important to them to have downtime. Like, what was the other day? My daughter was like, Mom, I don't want to go to jujitsu today because I need to regulate myself. I'm feeling a little overstimulated. I'm just like, wow, I've done a great job raising you. And part of me was like, I think you should go to jujitsu, but I respect the fact that you need some time to regulate.
Yeah. We have definitely had those conversations in my house as well. I love that you incorporate that with your family. And my hope is always that by talking about our strategies, talking about my darker times, which I share with my patients, talking about the things that help me, we're planting seeds and hopefully providing a roadmap for others on their journey too. So I very much appreciate you sharing all those personal stories too. It's really helpful, I think. Yeah. It's been such a pleasure. I would love if you could tell people listening where they can find you. How do they hear more about your work and your book and all of that?
So I hang out on Instagram a lot. You can find me at Dr. Kinney. There's a bunch of links on there. You can kind of go check out my podcast and other things. And then my website is thekinneyclinic.com. And on that website, there's a pop-up that comes up. You can get on my book list to kind of learn how you can be the first to know about pre-orders and VIP stuff.
Awesome. We'll put that all in the show notes as well for everyone, so it'll be easy to find. And yeah, I think I said to you before we started recording, one of my main goals, definitely doctor as teacher here, but one of my main goals has really been to highlight other practitioners like yourself so that less women come into the office saying like, how come I didn't know about this? And I didn't want to just get handed a pill. And so I highly recommend that if listeners resonate with you, they seek you out. You're just an amazing practitioner and human. I'm so glad that you came on today. And we're here to spread the word more about our medicine. And so thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a wonderful chat. And thank you guys for listening.
Wow. What a powerful reminder that stress is not the enemy. It's information. Dr. Kinney's analogies about the energy bank account and the relaxation muscle are such simple, profound ways to really reframe how we think about rest, resilience, and hormonal healing. If this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to connect with Dr. Kinney at thekinneyclinic.com or on Instagram, as she mentioned, at Dr. Kinney. And keep an eye out for her upcoming book, The Cortisol Cure. And if you're ready to explore your own cortisol rhythm and nervous system health, you can always download my free lab guide or begin your healing journey through the Calm Gut, Clear Mind 21-Day Reset. And those links are in the show notes, as well as on my website, drkellylivingston.com. Until next time, remember that healing starts when we stop overriding the body and begin listening to its wisdom. That's how we become fully human and deeply healed. Have a great day.